Let's talk about where you live. Do you live in a town, a city, or the countryside? Well, I live in a city. It's very big and very modern. The weather is usually very hot and the people are very friendly. There are also some very good restaurants. That is what you don't want to do in your IELTS speaking test. If you just use the same basic words like very nice, very good, or very big, you're not showing the examiner that you have a wide range of vocabulary, and that can really affect your score. So in this video, I'm going to show you some words you can use instead of saying very plus adjective. But before we start, if you want to learn exactly how to get a band 7 or higher in every part of the IELTS test, including what types of vocabulary to use, my full IELTS course will take you through everything step by step. You can check it out below in the description. All right, let's get started with the very first one, which is very big. This is obviously very commonly used by lower level students, very big. So instead of saying very big, you could use the word massive. Massive simply means very big, and it's a little bit casual, so you probably wouldn't use it in the writing test. So for example, there's a very big shopping center. No, you could say there's a massive shopping center near my house, which is always packed with shoppers. And when you say the word massive, you need to put some energy into it. So you wouldn't say there's a massive shopping center. You need to put some energy into that word. There's a massive shopping center near my house. Dot, dot, dot. Now, another word you can use is huge. Now, huge is mainly used in spoken English because it's quite informal and it means very big again. So look at this example. My university is very big. Well, no, we could say my university is huge. I heard it has over 40,000 students and several campuses. And again, when you're using the word huge, you need to put some energy into it. Don't just say my university is huge. Okay, put some energy, put some emotion into it. Let's move on to the next one, which is very tired. This is also another very common piece of vocabulary that lower level students use. So instead of saying very tired, you can use the word exhausted. Okay, this is a great alternative for very tired, and we use it to describe when you have no energy left. So for example, I was very tired after my first day of work. Well, no, we could say I was exhausted after my first day of work, so I went to bed as soon as I got home. This is going to make your speaking sound much more professional. Another one you can use is drained. Okay, drained is a great alternative you can use, and it means mentally or physically very tired when you've got no energy left. So many students feel very tired. No, many students feel drained during exam time because of all the pressure and all the hours of study. Another common one is very happy. Well, instead of saying very happy, you could say thrilled. Thrilled simply means extremely happy and excited, and you can mainly use it when something exciting happens. So for example, I was very happy. No, I was thrilled when I found out I had passed the IELTS exam with a band 7.5. Now just think about that for a second. If you get a band 7.5 in your IELTS test, how would you feel? Obviously very happy, very excited, probably about the future. So this is a great example of when you could use thrilled and the sort of feeling that you would feel if you were thrilled. Now just be careful, because there's a TH at the start, so make sure you pronounce that correctly instead of saying trilled, trilled with just a T sound. Now, another alternative you can use is on cloud 9. This next one is an idiom, and you can use it again when you're extremely happy or very excited. Because this is an idiom, you should only use it in speaking, not writing. So for example, most people feel very happy. No, most people feel on cloud nine when they first get into a relationship because everything feels exciting and new. So just picture that for a second. You're in a new relationship with someone you really, really like. Well, again, you're probably going to feel very happy. So we could use the idiom there on cloud nine. Let's move on to number 4, which is very beautiful. Now, there are lots and lots and lots of different ways to say very beautiful, but a very common one is stunning. You can use it to describe people, places, or even things. So it's not just to describe people. So for example, my cousin is a model. She's very beautiful. Well, no, we could say my cousin is a model. She's absolutely stunning and always stands out at family events. Now, that word there, absolutely, that just means very. So we're making the word stunning even stronger. Absolutely stunning instead of just stunning. Now, another one you can use is gorgeous. Now, this one is mainly used to talk about people or clothes, but sometimes it can be used to talk about scenery. So, for example, a very beautiful piece of nature or a beautiful landscape. So she wore a very beautiful traditional dress. Well, no, we could say she wore a gorgeous traditional dress to the ceremony and everyone was complimenting her. Let's move on to number 5, which is very cold. So instead of just saying very cold, you could use the word freezing. Freezing simply means very cold, and it's a really good one to use when you're talking about the weather. So for example, I visited Canada in the winter and it was very cold. Well, no, we could say I visited Canada and it was freezing. I had to wear 3 layers just to go outside. Another word you can use is icy. Okay, this means very cold and can also mean when something is literally covered in ice or when there actually is ice. So for example, in my country, the mornings are very cold. Well, no, we could say in my country, the mornings are icy during winter, especially in the mountains. So you can see that when you use words like freezing or icy, it's more descriptive. It really describes the feeling of what you're trying to say. So just think about it. If you're talking about the weather and the weather is icy, that really describes the situation more instead of just saying very cold. Let's move on to number 6, which is very good. Now, there are obviously lots of different words you can use to describe something or someone that's very good, but the first one that I recommend you use is excellent. It's a very natural word to use in speaking, and it means extremely good or of the highest quality. So, for example, the teacher I had in high school was very good. Or no, we could say the teacher I had in high school was excellent. She explained things clearly and really cared about her students. Now, apart from excellent, you could use the word fantastic. Again, it simply means very good or enjoyable. So let's look at this example. We had a very good time. Well, no, we had a fantastic time on our trip to Japan. I mean, the food and the culture were amazing. Now let's move on to number 7, which is very bad. We've obviously talked about very good, so now let's talk about very bad. The first alternative you can use is awful. Okay, so for example, the traffic in my city is very bad during rush hour. Well, no, we could say the traffic in my city is awful during rush hour. Awful simply means very bad. It can take over an hour to travel just a few kilometers. Now, another one you can use is horrendous. Okay, horrendous. It means very bad or very unpleasant. So, for example, the weather during our holiday was very bad. Well, no, we could say the weather during our holiday was horrendous. It rained every day and we couldn't do any of the outdoor activities we had planned. So if the weather was horrendous, yeah, it probably means it was raining a lot. Maybe it was very cloudy. Maybe there was a storm. Maybe there was lightning, thunder. Okay, horrendous means very bad. And just going back to what we said about the traffic being awful, you could also use horrendous to describe traffic. So you could say something like, the traffic in the morning is horrendous. Okay, that simply means very bad. Let's move on to number 8, which is very boring. The first word you can use instead of very boring is dull. Okay, dull means not interesting or not exciting. It's a really great word you can use for a lot of different things, including people or books or just even different activities. So the lecture was very boring. Well, no, we could say the lecture was dull. So I found it hard to concentrate after the first 10 minutes. And this is what a lot of students would say. They would say very boring, especially lower level students, but a higher level student would use something like dull. Again, it's more descriptive, it's more colorful, it's more interesting than saying very plus adjective. Next one is tedious. Okay, tedious is also a great word to use. It means boring because something takes a long time or has a lot of repetition where you have to do the same thing again and again and again. So if we look at this example, filling out visa applications can be very boring. Well, no, we could replace that with tedious. So filling out visa applications can be pretty tedious, especially when there are so many small details to check. So if you have to fill out applications, you have to keep doing the same thing again. You have to keep filling in the information or writing your information. So it can be tedious because you're repeating something that's not very interesting. Moving on to number 9 now, which is very difficult. So the first one you can use is challenging. Okay, challenging can mean difficult in a way that tests your ability or effort. Now, it's really good for describing things that are hard but rewarding. But just be careful. If something is challenging, it might not always be hard. It might just take a lot of time and effort. So for example, preparing for the IELTS speaking test was very difficult. Well, no, we could say preparing for the test was challenging, but it helped me to improve my fluency. Another one you can use is demanding. Okay, demanding means requiring a lot of time or effort or attention. So for example, being a medical student can be very difficult. So instead of saying very difficult, we could say demanding. Being a medical student can be demanding. You have to study for long hours every day. Let's move on to number 10, which is very small. The first word you can use instead of very small is tiny. Okay, tiny simply means very small, and it's a very common and very natural word in everyday conversation. Now, you can use it when you're describing spaces, objects, or even differences. So my apartment is very small. No, my apartment is tiny, but it's enough for one person and easy to keep clean. So yeah, we're simply saying the apartment is very small. Now, if you want to say something is smaller than tiny, you can use this word right here. Now have a look, and how do you think you pronounce it? Well, no, it's not minute like time, okay, not minute. It's pronounced minute. Minute, okay, not minute, but minute. So this one means very, very small. And like I said, it's even smaller than tiny. So let me show you an example. In scientific research, even a very small error will know. We could say in scientific research, even a minute error. And remember, minute. Okay, minute error in measurement can affect the results. So accuracy is quite important. So just remember, minute is smaller than tiny, and it's a great word to use when you're talking about something really, really, really small. So they were 20 alternatives for very plus adjective. If you want to learn 30 synonyms to improve your vocabulary band score, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. See you next time and keep studying hard.